So our family story starts with my great-grandfather, Gus Westergreen. And as a young man of 21 years, he immigrated from Sweden through Canada to Northwest Washington. And for several years, he worked on the West Coast here, logging and also with the railroad, and even went to Alaska fishing for a short while. And so then in about 1888, he set down some roots in the foothills about 4 miles south of the Canadian border in the town of Sumas. And the spot he chose was at the end of the road. At that time, it had been burned over. There were still some larger trees, but a lot of it was coming back with seeding back into second growth. You know, at that time, he really could have settled anywhere in Whatcom County into some of that rich farmland down in the Nooksack Valley with no rocks in the soil like we have up here. But, you know, he chose this area, this little valley nestled at the bottom of the cliffs of Sumas Mountain. So a family story goes, the reason he chose this because it reminded him of Sweden. So he built his home, his house, and a barn, cleared some land, but most of the homestead, the 160 acres, remained in timberland. And so then in about 1920, he deeded over the homestead to his son, Albert. And my grandfather, Albert, did similar. He cleared some land, but most of the property was left treed. And then Grandpa Albert also ended up buying a lot of more adjacent forest land. So then Grandpa Albert and Grandma Ella had 3 sons, and it just turns out to be that our father Richard had that same interest in growing trees. So Dad didn't grow or live too far away from home. He just crossed the road, and that's where he started his home and also started buying timberland. So when we were growing up, my brother Bill and myself and Ed, we worked on the family tree farm with Mom and Dad and our 2 sisters. And so for the 3 brothers here, the forestry was really in our blood. All 3 of us have careers in the timber industry. We all live close to the family homestead. And also continuing that family legacy of investing in forest land. So I'm going to do next. I'm just going to run through some kind of pictures, to just kind of give a share a little bit about our family tree farm. I was the middle one, the tallest at the time. I think we're all the same right now. Our family tree farm management style has really been one of small harvest units over the year as we increase the productivity of the land. And a significant part of the property that Dad bought had really been cut over, lots of hardwood with birch and maple. And in fact, there was even some of these stands that are 100% maple. And so at first we did a lot of partial cuts and kind of overstory removal, but you always seemed like we left a few maple trees, and the next thing you know, they're overtopping the trees we were planting. So we went kind of to a management style where we have small clear cuts, 2 to 10 acre clear cuts. And so that's kind of what we developed into doing on the tree farm. And we've got really a variety of age classes on the tree farm. Even some of these older stands of 150 years old that Jenna and Molly are exploring here. And because of the various soil types, the stand history, and the management style, we really have a very diverse tree farm and very diverse habitats. And it really provides homes for a lot of different kinds of birds, animals, and plants. And like many of you, we've done a lot of extra things to enhance wildlife. We built some ponds and, put up bird boxes. So very similar to what a lot of the tree farmers do. We grow a variety of tree species on our tree farm, again, for future markets. But, none of us know what the market's going to be in the future. So, the idea of growing a kind of a diverse portfolio makes some sense. A lot of our maple and birch stands we've converted to Douglas fir. And after years and years of getting rid of alder, now you see us planting more alder, managing more alder, again, for that diversity. But also, it grows fast, a little easier to establish. And we've got really good sites for western red cedar on our tree farm. And so we'll do a lot when we're doing our harvesting to protect the western red cedar when we're the understory ones, and then do a lot of planting. And as all of us know, we've talked about this a lot, there's the browse problem with western red cedar. And we're really fortunate. The only problem we have is during the winter with black-tailed deer. So what we do, we've used this tiller netting, and we put it on in the fall. You just cut a short length of it and put it over a PVC pipe, 3-inch PVC pipe, slip it over the tree, hold the bottom of the netting, slip the pipe off, and then staple it on really well because it will blow off during the wintertime. So we leave it on during the winter, and then in the spring, like Molly's doing here, we'll take it off. And then we'll do this maybe 2 to 3 years, and then we can end up with this kind of results with Bunny showing on this third growing season cedar here. We also have a lot of different very aggressive native brush species. And so we really need to target spray with herbicides. So some of the equipment we use is on the left here is the backpack mist blower for more broadcast spraying like a site prep. And then the sprayer in the center is for, like with the hood, the backpack for around the trees. And then on the right, I use this a lot as a pressurized bottle for a thin line treatment where you can do individual stems or maple stump clumps that we have a lot of. On our tree farm, we have a lot of understory cascara, and the grandkids have made extra spending money peeling cascara bark. I don't know, everybody do cascara bark here or not? Is that pretty common? But, right now it still sells for like $1.10 a pound when it's dry, and then it's Cascade or Pacific Coast Cascade Cascara Bark Company in Montesano buys it, so that's where we sell it. Occasionally we'll end up finding high quality maple pattern logs, patterned maple logs with curly maple, and which is used for woodworking and guitars. We grow our own fuel to heat with, and my brother Ed, he does a lot of commercial firewood, and he sells lots and lots of firewood. And then Ed's done most of our logging on our tree farm. We've done most of it ourselves. We've hired it out some, but since he's in high school, he's been doing it. So Ed's a very good skidder operator, skidder logger, and also a very good tree farmer. So last summer, we borrowed his skidder and did a commercial thinning with Cole's help. And so that was a fun project to do. It turned out to be that Cole's dad happened to help us plant these trees 25 years before. So that was a fun thing to do with Cole. And we've got Logan. We're starting to train Logan how to run the skidder. And then last winter, we had Ellie Lou out there helping us burn landings. So, a tree farm really is a fun place for family. And Bonnie and I just feel very fortunate we can live on our tree farm, get up each morning, look into views like this. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit. It's already been past the 15-year anniversary for the Forest and Fish Law. And we've really seen its successes in protecting endangered species and water resources. As small forest landowners, we really understand the need to provide clean water and wildlife habitat. And we do that as good as any other land use, so we should be very proud of that. We've seen in the past that, forest roads have contributed to water quality issues. So a major part of the Forest and Fish Law was the road maintenance and abandonment plans, or RMAPs. So on our tree farm, the original law came out, and we did a complete inventory of all our roads and done all our RMAPs updated, except just a few culverts that need to be upgraded, but they're undersized culverts when we need to upsize, but they still function, so we haven't done all of those yet. So I want to just take a minute to share a little history and improvements that we've done on this particular stretch of road to kind of illustrate the evolution, how practices have improved with new regulation and new knowledge. So this particular road is parallel and within 50 feet of a fish stream that's really on the right-hand side. And when early on, down below the barn here, there was actually a shingle mill that was straddled the creek, so then the sawdust would just drop and float down the creek. The cows are in the stream, and then if there was mud on this road, it was just ditched off. And the one thing I would say is, after these unacceptable practices compared to nowadays, we still had fish runs after that. So a couple things, what did we learn to do? We learned to slope the road, away from the stream. We put in berms to control the water. And then Ed put a whole series, because this is kind of a long, no breaks in the road, a whole series of these ditch outs to collect the water from the stream. We planted clover along the edge of the stream and actually some pollinators right here. And then Ed just finished putting in this bypass road. So what we've done, we've actually built another road away from the stream so we won't need to use that road as much. And then last year, Bill and Ed replaced a log stringer bridge we had here with a rapid span concrete and steel bridge. And also on this same road system, we just drilled and shot another rock pit, so we had a good source of rock close by for road maintenance. So the point is, we've done all these expenses here to provide clean water. So that's quite an investment for our tree farm. I want to quickly mention something that Stephen mentioned early on is a practice that Farm Forestry helped initiate, and that was a 15-year long-term permit. And so we've really found that useful. We have a lot of the frequent small harvest and a lot of thinnings. So using a 15-year permit has been really, really useful. The application, is a little bit time-consuming, but once you get the permit, it's just a 5 days notice. So that's been a lot easier for us than continuing to get permits on top of permits in a lot of situations. The Forest and Fish Law, when it first passed, we really did have some concerns that those one-size-fits-all stream buffers based on map site quality and not the stream width really may not work well for our tree farm. So, over the years, obviously we've talked about, we've lived on our tree farm, we know the ground, we've monitored the changes over time. And so what we've done is we've used the alternate plan permits to request buffers that fit our ground and our management style of smaller units. And a few years ago, Ed was doing a 15-year permit, and part of that, he did a very extensive application for a variable width buffer instead of a 118-foot fixed buffer. And so what he did really made perfect sense on the ground. He did it kind of in 3 zones, and it was on this particular stream, Collins Creek. It was 2,300 feet in length is what he was doing. But he did one zone, and that was a no-touch zone. It was any of the land that was over 70% slope toward the stream was no touch. And that was, I think it varied from about 20 feet to 90 feet and about a 56-foot average. And that's what you're seeing in the background, those bigger trees in the background there. And about 75% of the stream had that no-touch buffer on it. And then the slopes from 10% to 69%, he left 20 trees per acre that were over 12 inches in diameter. And on that zone, he actually went down within 15 feet of the stream. That's what the buffer was. And he didn't have to do it too many places, just in a few places. And in that zone, what he did is it was more of an overstory hardwood removal of the hardwood overstory, and then took some conifers out. And really, the only place that we ended up with a place we replanted was what I'm showing you here. And then on the slopes less than 10%, or they were reverse slopes away from the stream, those were just considered upland harvest. And so this really managed buffer really worked well for him, partly because it had been harvested about 4 times before in the last 85 years. And so I tried to get some pictures of this, but it was kind of shady and dark and too many trees still. And it really turned out really well. So this managed buffer is going to be something that really will sustain all of the stream functions for years to come. So just in conclusion here, keeping us small family forest owners on the ground for generations to come is really critical for maintaining Washington's working forest land base and the diversity of our low elevation landscapes. All of us, we really are unique landowners that plant the trees today that we'll likely never see a return on. And all of us know, the forest practice rules, require replanting after a harvest. But like many of you, we've got other reasons why we plant trees. And I've got several reasons why I love to plant trees, and these are 2 of them. So thank you.